Holy furries on a plane! A new Star Fox game comes out in a couple days! I've always loved Star Fox as a series, ever since I played Star Fox 64 and made it one of my first video games I'd ever completed. The story of each game is you play Fox McCloud, ace fighter pilot and top-tier Smash Bros. Characters. They travel through the Lilat system and beat up anyone trying to destroy it. Usually it's this guy. And since I'm such a fan of this series, I decided to make a video all about how this game has evolved over the years in terms of gameplay, along with the series' very interesting history. So let's hop in our R-Wing and fly on in. Or something. So up in the GB, Argonaut Games had just fixed up a cool little chip called the Super FX chip. This nifty little device allowed Super Nintendo games to show stuff off in 3D, which is crazy awesome. So to show it off, they worked with Nintendo to make Star Fox, a nifty little rail shooting experience that blew everyone's mind with Nintendo's first 3D game. And it was on Super Nintendo. It had implemented everything people liked about the shooters, added beloved characters like Falco! Oh, and Slippy. And even had a branching pathway for replay value. Not to mention freaking awesome boss fights. Holy crap, this is radical, these guys are great! Argonaut Games then told the world, hey everyone, we're making a sequel, Star Fox 2. It's gonna have all sorts of new game modes and mechanics, and it'll expand on the game dramatically, and everyone was pumped. Then Nintendo was like, hey, Argonaut, bro, love you, but you gotta cancel Star Fox 2. The Nintendo 64 is coming out, and we want there to be a clear division between SNES 3D and N64 3D. And Argonaut was like, but it's complete! It's like literally ready for release! And then Nintendo said, sorry man, if the Nintendo 64 was coming out in another year and a half, we wouldn't mind, but it's coming out very soon, so we do mind. And then the release of the Nintendo 64 was pushed back a year and a half, and it was awkward for everyone. Fortunately, thanks to the internet, some final beta ROMs have been leaked. So let's look into this game. Gameplay, yeah! Improvement right from the get-go. You can choose your character, holy mother of God! You can be Fox, Falco! Slippy, Peppy, or the two new characters, Miyu the Lynx and Faye the Dog. So I choose Falco, because we're both super cool people. And you also get to pick a partner to fly with you. And I'm going to choose Miyu, because she's cute. Now the game itself is drastically different than its predecessors in three big ways. Number one, instead of a linear path from beginning to end, you have the entire Lilat system to free roam. And you can encounter enemies and events along the map. The entire thing is a tactical war between the forces of Corneria and the forces of Andross, which is pretty neat. And everything happens in real time, so if you dilly-dally on one level, then you're wasting precious time as missiles race its way towards your home planet. Holy crap! Number 2, all-range mode. None of this straightforward rail shooting, just all-range mode dogfighting. Now, in terms of in-depth analysis, what does this mean? Well, for the most part, it puts pacing in control of the player, which can be a double-edged sword. The action segments are usually meant to be fast-paced, like the rail shooting in the original. If the player goes super slow, it makes the entire game slow down, which is essentially hurtful when the rest of the game runs in real time. We'll come back to this later though, so we'll put a bookmark here. Number 3. So let's say you're inside an enemy base and it's a little cramped and you just need to hit this stuff in the center, but you keep flying past it because there's too little space. Come on! What are you supposed to do? Well, just hit that select button and boom! Star Chicken! Technically it's called a walker, but it looks like a chicken, so Star Chicken! It's canon! This is a super nifty way for there to be both ground combat in the game before the likes of Landmaster, and gives a lot more control in all range mode, which is good and super awesome. So overall, Star Fox 2 is a pretty good game, but it's a shame it got cancelled. But as we're going to see throughout this video, it inspired a lot of stuff within the Star Fox universe. But then, in the year 1997, rising from the ashes of Star Fox 2 like a metaphorical star phoenix, Star Fox 64 entered the scene, and oh my god! Star Fox 64 is an amazing game. Like, it's probably one of my favorite games ever. I wouldn't hesitate to call it my favorite game on the Nintendo 64. That's right, I like it better than this, and this, and even this! But of course that all boils down to personal opinion. What's the game actually like? This game is a lot more like the original Star Fox than it is Star Fox 2. You go from level to level, flying through it, facing enemies, and usually ending with a boss of some kind. The biggest and most noticeable difference is that everything is much more defined. Instead of polygons flying around through space, it's meteors and stuff flying around through space. You get the idea. It's a huge graphical overhaul, and it's really welcome. Another difference you have now is full voice acting!
Let's rock and roll!
Whoa! Help me!
Pretty smooth flying, Fox. Do a barrel roll!
Along with the addition of land vehicles and a single underwater level. It also formally introduces Starwolf, who was objectively the coolest rival in all of gaming. All range mode being formally introduced allowed the depth of the game to be multiplied in such a way that what was once something you just flew by, now became part of a battlefield. Having the rail shooting from Star Fox 1 and the all range mode from Star Fox 2 means two different types of gameplay seamlessly mishmashed into one another. And it works, dang it! As far as end-level bosses go, while it didn't really expand on quantity, they went really big on quality. From a cluster of polygons to this textured boss who looks really good compared to other N64 bosses, in my humblest of opinions. Not to mention these bosses require a bit more thinking than just hit the weak spot. Like the boss in Zonus, where you have to bomb the breathing pipe thingy so that it can't retreat underwater. Or the Macbeth boss, where you can change the course of the track and make him crash into the station, which is really freaking awesome and incredibly satisfying. Alright, enough gushing for now. I'll probably give this game a whole episode one day, because I love it to pieces. Like, it's my favorite. I love it. I could give it a little kiss on the cheek. Yeah, there we go. Now we get to jump over to a developer known as Rare. At the time of Star Fox 64 was released, they were best known for Battletoads and Donkey Kong Country series. But up their sleeve they had GoldenEye, Diddy Kong Racing, Banjo-Kazooie, Donkey Kong 64, and Conker's Bad Fur Day. Upon releasing these and a couple others, they would basically be lords of the table of video game development. Now, around 1998, they began work on a game called Dinosaur Planet, meant to be their last Nintendo 64 game. It was going to be quite similar to Ocarina of Time as far as control goes, with really good visuals and the ability to swap between two protagonists using swap stones. Then Miyamoto came in and said, "Hey, that looks like Fox!" And shortly after, an agreement was made for Nintendo to have another Rare game under their IP, and for Rare to get some spotlight by working with Nintendo's Ace Pilot, who had been doing so well in his past few games. And since the decision was made pretty late in development, they had to rewrite most of the plot, ditch the swapstone concept, and it was pushed to release on the GameCube instead of the Nintendo 64. And so Star Fox Adventures was born, introducing such gameplay elements to the series as... Crystal? Now, this game's been talked about a lot, and to very varying degrees of whether it's good or not. Although I think the general consensus is that, hey, it's a good game. Rare still made a pretty dang good platformer. It just isn't a Star Fox game. It led to them shoehorning in anything that can make it feel like a Star Fox game, like the 2-minute R-Wing section or Andross being a final boss. Like, when you think Star Fox, you think high-tech dogfights, laser beams, pew pew! Not walking around some tribal planet with a staff and a dinosaur partner who still isn't as hated as Slippy. And every time I think of this development story, the sort of bitter irony that I think about is the fact that what was going to make this game really cool was the idea of swap stones, the fact you could swap between the two protagonists. But as Star Fox became more part of the game, the second protagonist, Crystal, got written more and more out, sort of losing the whole heart of the original game. I don't know, it makes me upset. Also, Andross's final boss fight was probably the biggest misstep in all of Star Fox because A, instead of using the final boss as a test of all the abilities you learned throughout the game, you know, the staff stuff, it became an R-Wing fight. And I love the R-Wing fights, and I love Star Fox lore, but having Andross just pop out of nowhere and turn it all into an R-Wing battle is like if you're playing Super Mario 64, and right before you go up to fight Bowser in the sky, you hop in an R-Wing and fight Andross! So anyway, let's move on. At E3 in 2003, they showed a video montage of the new Star Fox Assault game, developed by Namco this time, showing the return of the R-Wing and all range mode and all the fun that came with it. And introducing... ground combat? Pretty much the public's response. In fact, there are rumors that there were people actually booing the video when ground combat was shown. Probably still sore about Adventures not being the Star Fox game they were hoping for. But in 2005, the game was out, and it was alright and stuff. So now let's touch on the gameplay really quickly so that editing this isn't a nightmare. The addition of ground-based combat was a very interesting change that made the game feel a little more like another modern FPS with aliens that you had to fight. And while it's in there a lot, the story mode still manages to include a good amount of R-Wing action as well. The ground-based combat is without a doubt its weakest point, seeing how it can be a little difficult to control at times. But in my opinion, it was still a good game, even if a lot of others don't agree. Assault had a lot of little things that made it great. And now he's trapped. And of course, the menu music. But all in all, it was an alright game, so on to the next one. Let's talk about a guy named Dylan Cuthbert. I hope I pronounced that right. He used to be in Argonaut Games, the one who made the unreleased Star Fox 2. In fact, he was the lead programmer. He later left Argonaut Games to create Q Games. And apparently Nintendo still had his number, so they called up his company to make Star Fox Command. Gameplay-wise, you can tell that Dylan was still antsy to get another shot at Star Fox 2, because this game is just ripe with elements from it. It's 100% all-range mode, it's a free roam overworld, where you have to stop opposing forces before they get to your home base, and it has a time-based system. Another thing that's notable about this game is that there are 9 different endings, which include Slippy getting married and having 80 kids, Falco making his own team of fighters called Star Falco, 2 different endings where Crystal joins Starwolf, an ending where the descendants of Star Fox all make a new team, and an ending where Fox and Falco just say screw it and become pod racers. I'm not making that up. No one has any idea which one's canon. In fact, there's a chance none of them are canon. Who knows? In this game, you can actually play as a whopping 14 different characters, each with their own special ship and role in the story mode. Now, I personally wasn't a fan of Star Fox Command. If you liked it, more power to you. I just felt like the elements tried to change up from the older games backfired a bit. Like, for instance, multiple endings. In Star Fox 64, you kinda had multiple endings, where, depending on what route you took to Andros, the boss fight was different, and you got a little bit of a different ending. So they decided to ramp it up, with 9 different endings this time, and a more complex narrative, which I think is really cool. But one thing I don't like is how you get these endings. In Star Fox 64, if you showed your skill in a level by flying through arches or saving the base or dodging all the searchlights, then you'd be able to go to a more difficult secret but much more rewarding route. In Command, you just choose the dialogue option. But hey, don't worry, on your first playthrough, all of the interesting routes will be restricted. You wanna know where Falco is? Well, too bad! You gotta contact Slippy! It's definitely not a bad game, and most of the world agreed with that, rating an inkling above Assault because my opinion does not run the world. And then they released Star Fox 64 for the 3DS with improved audio and visual quality. And that's all I really have to say about that. And that brings us to today. About 10 years since our last non-port game and longer since our last canon game. But hey, I guess I should be thankful, because Star Fox Zero is set to release. I'll do my own separate video about how I feel on that particular game, hopefully in the next couple weeks. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this flight through Star Fox's history.